Hello, ladies and gentlemen. It is Monday night. In fact, it is the third Monday of the month, and that can only mean one thing. That's right. This is the Shadows Mall, and I am your host, Marcus Shadow. Welcome to the year of Trek, installment number 4. Tonight, we're going to take a look at Star Trek IV: The Voyage Home. Of
Does
course.
this does this really count as Star Trek? Yeah.
Well, for the Shadows Mall, it is.
I was
That's why I
making
call it the year of Trek.
I was making the case of this is Star Trek in name only.
Fair enough. This is true. And as you just heard, joining me, we have all the way from the other side of the pond in England, Chriz, aka the Mole.
Hello.
And we have the Golden Bird himself, Mr. James Phoenix.
Hello.
So, yeah, Star Trek IV: The Voyage Home. I'm going to say about this movie what I said about G.I. Joe Retaliation. It's a pretty good movie. It's just not a good Star Trek movie at all. And I think that's where the division is, because a lot of Star Trek fans hate this movie for that very reason. But then a lot of people actually like this movie because it's not entirely Star Trek and because it's actually a decently well-made movie. It's got its problems, obviously, given the age of the movie, like when it came out, and who wrote it and stuff like that, the writing, and just the fact that it's classic Trek. So the writing, as we've seen up to this point, not that good. But this was one of the better written ones. It was pretty much, as Mole described it, it was a buddy comedy movie. And if that's what it was going for, then it kind of pulled it off because it did it pretty well. But it's not Trek.
Yeah, I'd make the case it goes against almost everything Star Trek is, because they tried way too hard to, I don't know if this is the correct term, but mainstream Star Trek. And I don't mean mainstream it in, like, because I know some Star Trek fans look down their nose at the Abrams ones, which we'll get to eventually, but like I said, they still feel somewhat like Star Trek. This is literally, like, I don't even know if they've had the same budget as the other ones, because most of it's shot on location in an actual city. Like they're trying to save money. This felt almost like they wanted to make it mainstream, so they tried as hard as they could to go with all the comedies that they were in the 80s. Like, this belongs on the shelf of, like, Ferris Bueller's Day Off and stuff like that, which in and themselves are not bad films, but none of them are Star Trek films.
Yeah, I mean, they did almost, in terms of Trek, they did almost everything wrong that you could think of with this movie. They took away the Enterprise. They put them on Earth in the past. They have technology that doesn't work, so they rarely, if ever, actually use Star Trek technology. It's like, really? And it just, the whole leaps of logic of, hey, look, there's, fucking Nichelle Nichols walking around in a Starfleet uniform and no one blinks an eye. I'm like, really? How does no one not look at her and be like, the fuck?
Yep, and the idea that they need a whale for the future.
Yeah. And that's the other thing, too, is this movie, I think, was also supposed to be a, save the whales message movie, which I'm like, you could have done that without making the entire movie basically a documentary about why you need to save the whales. It's like, come on.
This film was literally just one scene away from Kirk standing there as Willie jumped over him.
Yeah, pretty much.
I would have loved that to have been would just love that to be the capture picture. Kirk just looking up as a whale goes over him.
Or like when the doctors, the female scientist doctor is talking, and then they get the whales later. I just expected all that to be go into montage mode and hear Martina McBride. Yeah. It's like, come on.
Yeah, but what do you think, Jim?
I could agree with that assessment. I liked it as a movie. I felt it was, yes, it took away a lot of what makes Star Trek, but I felt like that was kind of the point. This is that kind of movie that was supposed to, it's sort of like one of those. I think I compared this to Marcus. It would have been good as an episode, but not necessarily as a movie. But I think
Yeah.
what they were trying to do was go for one of those Star Trek outings in which they're focusing more on the characters themselves, the development of the characters themselves, and on situational whatever's going on, rather than any rather than the ship and the technology and da 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 da. It's like and it's just that sort of thing. It's not really anything particularly. The comparison I made was sometimes you're going to have an episode where everything's all about the ship and and aliens and technology and da da da, and sometimes you're going to have an episode like the Inner Light, I think it's called. The episode where Picard becomes common for the episode. He gets a flute and he's in this ancient civilization, and that's all he's doing. Sometimes you're going to have an episode like that. Now, granted, that was more for drama and emotional effect, and this is more for comedy, but I think it still worked. It was a chance to put the Star Trek characters and see how they would react to the world we have today, which I'm sure that's something people wondered about. How this highly evolved crew could react in what to the people watching the movies, the modern world. And I thought it was a fun opportunity to do that. Yes, the premise for them to go back in time was flimsy as fuck,
Yeah,
but I think it was a fun character piece.
I also
think it
really
was
didn't like.
also. Go ahead, Mo.
I also really didn't like what they did with comedy in this film. I like comedy in films when it makes sense. However, the original Star Trek people are supposed to be well versed in history or dating all the way back, and you get lines like, "What did he mean by exact change?" Or, "Oh yeah, he took LDS," and stuff like that. It's like, what? Really? It's like what I expect out of a sitcom.
Mm-hmm.
It's like if, like, say, Mork did that on Mork and Mindy, which was a good series. That makes sense because he's an alien that's not used to our customs, yada yada yada. These are meant to be ones that have studied humanity for decades and are representative by the Federation, which is the pinnacle of what humanity and stuff was meant to thrive for. And then they put them there, and they're like making jokes like you would make in like a, I don't know, a kids film or a kids series about, oh, look at the weird wacky aliens, oh, they don't speak our language.
Mm.
Oh
Also
look,
felt
he has one of those weird communication devices. It must be a pager.
I also felt it was a little one-sided because, okay, you have people from the 23rd century and aliens, Spock, obviously being the Vulcan, trying to blend in or figure out how to get around in this in this primitive world compared to the 23rd century, and that's all well and good. But if you do that, you need to have the other side of it. You need to have that world reacting to all of a sudden the presence of these weird-looking humans in outfits that we don't recognize, and you know what I mean? And it's like no one questions it, and it's like if it was in modern day, if it was today, fair enough, because you could get away with saying, oh well, people would just think they're cosplaying because that's a thing now. But back then, conventions weren't all that huge, and the ones that were huge, cosplay wasn't as prevalent or as well known as it is now. So people would question if all of a sudden you see fucking Uhura walking around in her Starfleet uniform. They'd be like, "The fuck are you wearing, lady?"
Well, kind of.
And I also made this point to Jim of, given the point in time they were supposed to go back to, yeah. Isn't it kind of counterproductive to send the Russian guy after the nuclear vessel?
Yep. Yeah.
Like, and I'm sitting here thinking, the first person they go up to is a cop, and he doesn't question, hey, there's a Russian guy asking about a nuclear ship. Nope, that's perfectly normal in an era where the Russians are trying to fucking nuke us.
Yeah.
That's racist.
I also made the comment then of, to be fair, with the outfit, it could sort of make sense. Because during the 80s, one of the things that was a little prevalent in culture and stuff was the punk and a little bit of the rebellious side. Not as much as the 90s, but it was there. That's why, like, if you look at, like, I don't know, 1980s Ninja Turtles, that's why, like, Rocksteady and Bebop look so weird. Which means if you walk down the street, part of what they tried to do in the 80s, some people, was to try and look different. So it could have matched up because it's different, if that makes sense. So it wouldn't be like, oh, she's cosplaying. It'd just be like, oh, she's trying to look different.
Yeah, that would work if it actually looked like something from that era. But the fact of the matter is that the Starfleet uniform is so different to anything in that era that it's completely out of place. And I'm sorry, I just don't buy people not questioning it.
Which is fair enough.
Like, because like you look at Spock's robe when he put the bandana on. Okay, I could see people not questioning that because dude in a robe with a fucking headband. Yeah, I can see that fitting with the punk rock movement as you mentioned. Back in those days, that works, that fits. But a fucking Starfleet uniform, come on.
Yep. Which I'd also have to say, I think this film sort of missed a beat.
Sort of.
If you're gonna send them back in time, and you're going to make it almost not Star Trek while being slightly comical and almost mocking stuff that is Star Trek, I honestly think instead, dude, that woman should have had a dad or something like that, and it should have been a few years earlier. It should have been like 10, 20 years earlier, and she should have had a dad who was Gene Roddenberry. So meeting them gives him the idea to write Star Trek for us.
That could have worked.
At least that would be more intelligent than Wales.
Yeah. I also have to say they fucked up with the profanity thing, and I don't think they realized it.
Oh.
Because remember they go back in past, and back then everyone was all like cursing at them and stuff like that, and Kirk recognizes it as profanity. He's like, oh, well, they were more profane back then. They said more colorful language.
And I haven't read the literature at the time.
Exactly, which is fine, and so they try to blend in by trying to use those words, and Kirk saying, Spock, that's not how you do it. And it's like, okay, that's kind of funny, that's kind of interesting, because maybe in the future, maybe they don't use that as much. But then, near the end of the movie, after going through all that and misusing the profanity, Kirk not trying to use the profanity in that way, not trying to blend in because he's on the ship talking to people, turns around and blurts out, get us the hell out of here. I'm like, you just used profanity correctly. What the fuck?
Well, it's not, to be fair, it's not like just one movie ago he mentioned you killed my son, you Klingon bastard.
That's true, too. It's just
it's not like that happened.
That's true. You can't have characters question profanity, not knowing how to use profanity, when they fucking regularly use it.
Yeah. Now, I will say, Spock was kind of fun in his, as I described it, basically Ralph Macchio let himself go.
Yeah.
Well, that was kind of funny seeing them like that, but they did your error again.
Oh.
And I will admit, I do like the fact that we're doing these more just shooting the shit round table style. That's funner than going through the whole thing. But they used the security footage, and again, it was footage from the film before it.
Yeah.
And now for the thing I wanted to point out, Marcus, and correct me if I'm wrong, Jim, but where the hell did they get that ship from, Jim?
The bird of prey?
Yeah.
It's the ship they got at the end of the last movie.
No, it's not. Look at the cockpit. It's completely ass different in the third film to what it is in the fourth film. It's a completely redesigned cockpit, and they didn't do any repairs. So that's a brand new ship. What the fuck?
Pretty sure the cockpit looked the same, but okay.
No, the cockpit looked completely ass different. When I noticed that, I was like, how the hell does it look so different? Like, nothing about it was recognizable.
That's gonna look like I said, it looked the same to me. I don't know.
Now that you mention it, they expanded it so they could hold the crew of the Enterprise, didn't they?
I think, yeah, they did that, and they also moved stuff around and stuff.
Yeah.
And it's like they said they didn't do any work on it, so it's like it looks like a different ship inside.
Yeah.
Well, that's just objectively not true, because Scotty specifically tells Kirk that, I rebuilt this and moved this and did this, so that I turned it into something I can actually work with and make it run.
Yeah, to make it the interior stuff. It seemed weird.
Yeah. I'd also like to point out, because at the beginning of this movie, there's a trial being held on Earth, for the trial of Kirk and the Enterprise, whenever for blowing up the Enterprise and stealing the Enterprise and crap like that. And Sarek shows up to represent them. Now, Mike, the question I have is, wait a second. Sarek was on Vulcan with them at the end of the third movie. All of a sudden, he's now on Earth to represent them. I'm like, if Sarek went to Earth and could get there faster than them, why didn't he just take them with him? That makes no sense to me. Why are they not on Earth with... Ah!
Yeah, and while you're mentioning that, I'm just going to post for the benefit of Jim, if it lets me. There is the cockpit, Jim, from this movie.
Okay. Okay.
I just got to wait for the second. I just got to wait for the other one. I had one. I had one from the second film. Ah, there it is.
You from the third film.
From the yeah. Are you ready?
Okay.
That's different.
Oh, wow. Yeah, they made it more like Federation Starship. That's... Wow!
That's noticeably different. How did no one pick up on this?
Yeah, they basically made it the Bridge of the Enterprise. Look at the layout, Jim, for the 1 and 4. They basically made it the Bridge of the Enterprise. That's hilarious.
I thought one of you two would have noticed that, because you're meant to be bigger Trek fans. I noticed that. I was like, and they even showed the footage in the fucking start of the film. What the fuck? And I was like, wait, what?
That's just... wow.
Okay, then.
Yeah, but I didn't know if either of you had a problem with Sarek just fucking showing up without them when he was just on Vulcan with them. It's like, wait a minute. Why did you have to go first?
Yep. I may have forgot. I may have missed part of the film, or third film, or just forgotten something. Unless that's who you would talk about. What the fuck happened to Lady Vulcan?
Didn't they leave her on Vulcan? Like when they left, she was there and she stayed on Vulcan.
I couldn't remember because there wasn't. I couldn't remember if it was like a long goodbye or anything. Because I didn't see her throughout all of this.
Yeah, I think she was there at the very beginning when they were leaving, and for whatever reason, she decided to stay behind or something.
They should have kept her for because if it's meant to be like a trilogy, she was one of the most important characters in the second film ish.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, second out of the trilogy, not second overall. Before someone says that, but
true.
Because she was the one teaching Spock all this stuff. Surely they should have took her with her.
You would think so. Like I said, I don't remember the reason she gave, but I think she gave a reason for staying behind on Vulcan.
Yeah.
But yeah, and just very quickly for those listening, I'm just gonna basically say the plot summary of this movie, which is basically an alien probe shows up, goes through the Milky Way, and it's a lazy ass alien probe too. It's like a fucking can with things that extend out of it. I'm like, really? This is fucking Star Trek. You couldn't be more creative and come up with something better looking. But an alien probe comes out that basically sings or speaks in whale song and can drain energy from things, so it shuts everything down, like starships and star bases and stuff. Eventually it reaches Earth, shuts down Starfleet, and then of course, because Kirk and company decided, oh no, we have to take this piece of crap bird of prey back to Earth instead of going back with Sarek like they should have. They come flying home and discover the probe, and because Spock, they figured out, oh, it's whale song, and there's no humpback whales because humans drove them to extinction. We need to go back into the past to get them, and they use a maneuver they developed. I believe it was in the TV show called the slingshot maneuver, which basically slingshots them around the sun to go back in time, which I find kind of hilarious because in Next Gen, they actually disproved that. They proved that wasn't possible, not in terms of the speed or anything, but because in Next Generation, you can't get close. A ship cannot get close to the sun without a certain type of shield, and they actually develop a type of shielding that allows a ship not to, get burnt to a fucking crisp near the sun. Yet in the original series, they can slingshot around it without this technology. It's like, wait a minute. But they go back in time, get humpback whales, and probably irrevocably alter time in the process, and not even give a fuck, and then come back and save the day.
I'd make the case it kind of works.
Oh.
Like you said, they slingshot around it really fast. And in Next Gen, it's on about mainly getting closer to it while going normal speeds. I reckon that would be the difference between walking or running along hot coals and just standing there barefoot on them still. If you walk across them fast, that's the secret to the trick. You don't burn yourself. They put, you burn. So I reckon it might be that.
It could. I don't know. I just found it kind of funny that given how close they got to the sun and the fact that this is technology from 100 years prior, and even in the 24th century, they had yet to develop the technology that, kept the hole from fucking melting.
I also don't understand what the hell. They're really Star Trek, as much as parts of it are good and stuff, they are inconsistent about a lot of stuff.
Mm-hmm.
Like, one of the big ones is, and I know Jim will have seen this before. Jim, how many times have you seen someone like Spock be knocked out by gas or something like that?
Mm-hmm.
How does he hold his water? How does he hold his breath under the water without any sort of snorkel stuff? He doesn't have gills. So sometimes Vulcans don't need to breathe, but then other times they can breathe. They can breathe perfectly fine. I don't get it.
I think it's a Superman effect. They could just hold their breath for a really, really long time.
Possibly, but when he was down there, wasn't he also making noises with the whale? Because he was trying to communicate with it, which means he had to have breathed if he's making a noise.
No, he was mind melding with the whale.
Ah, I knew he was trying to communicate with it, but it still seemed weird.
He put his hand on the whale because he was mind melding with it.
Yeah, it's like that. It still seemed weird to me that he can go underwater perfectly fine sometimes, but other times he'll be drowning, or other times he'll be weak to get. It's like, what? Be consistent.
Mm-hmm. I will say one thing that just made me facepalm, and Mole may have seen this because he watched the original series, but I know Jim didn't, so he may not get this. But at the end of the movie, when they're in the water, holding onto the sinking ship, Spock smiling. It's like, wait, that makes no sense. Spock doesn't smile.
But he can.
Yep.
They retcon that though, because originally, in like the pilot Spocks Smile, that's because he was a slightly different character.
I'm not about the
Spock shows emotion.
I'm not about the pilot. I'm about the fact they've mentioned throughout the original series and various Star Trek things that sometimes if their emotions become too strong, Vulcans can express stuff. That's why Spock's father hugged him.
Mm-hmm.
In one of the episodes, Spock's father hugged him and stuff like that. It's like, and I reckon, because of how Spock was doing the mind shit with it and all that crap, I'm thinking it's because seeing the whale like that, it was meant to be so majestic that even Spock's emotions get him, so he just smiles.
Fair enough. I don't know. It just seems it seemed what he did with the smiling and the laughing, and I'm thinking it might have been something along the lines of Nimoy didn't quite realize that he was just kind of going with the moment, but it just seemed out of character for Spock.
Oh, it seems out of character for Spock in the broader sense of that, but when you look at all aspects of what they've done with him over the years and stuff, they have shown that if emotions get too strong, he can show emotions. And I think that's what they were going for, because they want you to believe that freeing this whale was this huge moment and it was bringing upon life and, oh my god, it's life and its natural environment and all this stuff. So it's meant to be Spock just sort of smiling because he's so moved by the moment, which can happen. Spock can show emotions if it's really fucking like a big moment. Not all the time. I don't expect him to do it every single day, but he can do it.
Which is fair enough. Yeah, like I said, I didn't like this movie. It wasn't a bad movie, but it was a bad Star Trek movie.
I'd like to point out a couple of things.
Sure.
Number one, in that next gen episode, that was just developing shields that would let you go down into the actual atmosphere of a star.
Yeah, he's Googled.
The slingshot maneuver does not. No, I haven't actually. I know this. The sling, because I remember the episode. That was the shielding to see how long they could, so that the ship could hide within the corona of a star.
Yeah,
Whereas
the metaphasic shielding.
Yeah, whereas a slingshot maneuver just required building into the gravity of the star, which extends far beyond the star's actual corona and surface. So advanced shielding would not be required to perform the slingshot maneuver, just engines at the appropriate angle and hitting the much like Sulu, jamming the engines the right way at the right time to catch the gravity and accelerate past warp 10.
Yep.
And so it's certainly possible. In fact, according to this, at one point,
According
Picard
to
and
this, so you
Riker.
did Google. Thank you.
I didn't Google. I memory alpha. And Picard and Riker theorized how the Albaz could have been thrown back in time, and while they knew the shuttle pod didn't have warp drive, they suggested it could have somehow accelerated beyond warp 10. And it was stated later on in some of the novels that initially the Enterprise was the only ship that had the engines capable of doing this because of the cold start in the naked time, and that's why the Department of Temporal Investigations claimed it to build the first time ship.
Which is bullshit because in this movie they proved that a bird of prey could do it too. Yeah, you'll get stuck back in time because it shatters your dilithium crystals, but a bird of prey can do it.
To be fair, the books and novels aren't canon.
Yeah.
True.
Well, you don't say books and novels; those are kind of the same thing.
Not really, because you can have comics, which are graphic novels.
True.
Yeah, I don't know, just the way they presented the slingshot just looked like the Enterprise was, or not the Enterprise, but the Bounty was kind of close to the sun, and I'm sitting here thinking, how is the hull not melting from this?
I did love the fact they spray painted HMS Bounty on the side. That did amuse me.
Which leads me to another question. Where did they get spray paint on Vulcan?
It's blood.
Okay.
Now you can ask, where did they get blood?
Well, I could answer that since we didn't see him in this movie, even though we should have. And I would say, remember how Kirk said to the Klingon, "We'll kill you later"?
Yeah. They killed him using blood to write HMS Bounty on the side. That explains everything.
There you go. Oh no, we didn't see him, so the question is what that might be why Saavik stayed behind. I'm trying to remember why she said she stayed behind. It might have had something to do with the Klingon prison or something. I don't know.
Possibly.
But yeah. So I guess that about covers the movie. I mean, there's really not much note. It wasn't an overly terrible movie. It was just more of the same in terms of the gaps of logic, and it was just less of a Star Trek movie than the other ones because they took out almost everything about it that was Star Trek, aside from the characters. And now I know, before people start saying it and start writing whatever, I know the heart of Star Trek is the characters, but you can't have that be the only thing in the movie that is Star Trek. That doesn't work.
These are the voyages of the USS Enterprise.
Yeah.
Not the HMS Bounty.
Yeah, exactly.
However, I will make the case with this film of, I don't know if anyone here will agree or not, but like I said, it's not a good Star Trek film. It's almost Star Trek in name only. However, it has enough elements of Star Trek that I think this was kind of needed. Only because, like you've mentioned in the past over and over again during these, of the excuse of, well, they might not have known they were going to get another film, and every time they kept thinking they weren't going to get another film. Arguably, Star Trek's popularity was winding down a bit. Not noticeably, but you know what I mean? It wasn't winding down a bit. It wasn't like completely obscure, but it was, especially in the 80s, it was becoming more that thing like people did in the 90s of, oh, it's just for nerds, it's just for losers. So I think they tried to make a movie that was as mainstream as possible. So, like, I don't know, let's say Jim was married. He could sit down and watch Star Trek 4 with his wife if she didn't like Star Trek, and his kids and stuff, and everyone would find something they'd enjoy about it. So everyone will be like, okay, maybe Star Trek isn't just for this. Maybe Star Trek isn't just for these. It's for everyone, which could be kind of needed and did help elevate its popularity a bit. But yeah, it's not an overly great film for Star Trek. But it's not a terrible film in itself. I mean, you know what I mean?
Yeah,
Like, there's enough pros there that I can understand why, and I can appreciate what this film is.
absolutely.
Agreed.
Absolutely. Well, I can at least say this about this film. It's not as bad as the next one.
We're on Nemesis already.
Oh, that's even worse than the next one. But oh god, the next one is so bad. But we'll get to that next month.
It can't be worse than 3. It can't be worse than 3 or Nemesis.
I don't know. I wouldn't consider it worse than Nemesis. Worse than 3, maybe. Because I give you the line, what does God need with a starship? Yeah.
Yeah, but I give you in Star Trek 3 the line of basically, yeah, fuck it, the one matters more than many.
This is true. This is true. But yes, let's go around final thoughts on the movie, and let's start with Jim.
Overall, I said I enjoy the movie. I agree it's a little light on actual Star Trek stuff, but it's still a fun movie to watch. It's a great character piece where you get to see the characters in the environment. It's not all about technology and drama, da 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 da. You get to see the characters, the more lighter side of the characters, that they're actually people and not just these, soldiers of war and everything. You get to see them, be able to some extent, enjoy themselves at least a little bit, even if they are on a mission. So it's kind of interesting to see how that plays out.
All right, rating?
Um, I would give this movie an 85, maybe. I think it's a good movie. Yeah, I take a little bit off because it's not as much of a Star Trek movie as it could be, but it's still a good movie.
Fair enough. Over to the mole.
Personally, like I said, I think this film has enough pros that people will almost anyone can enjoy the film.
Mm-hmm.
Whether or not that's a good thing, I don't know, because some people like Star Trek where it's just to the core audience instead of being to every little casual, if that makes sense.
Right.
But at the same time, that can help stuff. So I don't really know what I'd do with that, if that makes sense. Like, I don't know if it'd be a bad thing or a good thing, but it is definitely worth checking out. It is at least worth renting if you like Star Trek or if you want to see a film of Star Trek, because I'd make the case this could be a great point to get into Star Trek because you'll get to know the characters and stuff. Even if this film is chocked full of 80s cliches. And I mean really cliches, like, I'm sorry, look at Kirk's love interest.
Yeah.
Okay, besides the fact she works with whales, quickly, name me 5 differences between her and any of the love interests in the Karate Kid. Go.
Touche.
Yeah, she's like the most generic love interest of every 80s film. And that's kind of bad. I'd put this firmly on the rent list.
Fair enough. Well, as I said before, it's not a terrible movie. It's not a great movie. It's just a pretty bad Star Trek movie because they take out so many of the elements that makes it Star Trek, and those that they keep in, they kind of bastardize. Like, the only thing in there that's out and out Star Trek are the characters, but even then, half of them are in civilian clothes, which makes sense because when they left space stock, they weren't in uniform. So, and go ahead.
Even the theme song, because I forgot to mention the theme song, even the theme song at the start, like I was mentioning to you, it starts with like an upbeat little melody thing that sounds like it's just one beat away from being Beverly Hills Cops. Dun 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 dun.
That's true. Yeah, they really went out of their way to try to make this like a buddy comedy, like even like we said, down to the theme song, and it's like that's not good. It's not good at all.
It's Spotsky and Hutch.
Oh, that's great, Mo. But it is a fun romp. It's got comedy, a lot of comedy in it. I think it's got too much comedy. They tried to make this a comedy, and I don't think that was a good idea. And one thing I didn't mention that I'd like to mention really quick here is I didn't like their blatant disregard for temporal law, for lack of a better phrase. When you could make the argument, oh, what, it's Kirk, he wouldn't care, da da da. Yes, he would, because in the original series, in Star Trek, they have been to the past multiple times, and one of the episodes actually deals with that they had to go back there because Dr. McCoy left something in the past that would dramatically alter the past if they didn't go back and fucking get it. So Kirk, more than anybody else, probably in the Federation, aside from the Temporal Division, if that exists in the 23rd century, knows the dangers of fucking with the past. And yet, what does he do? He goes there, fucking lets Scotty basically give 80s engineers fucking transparent aluminum. They fucking leave Chekhov's phaser and Starfleet ID in the past, and they fucking take this chick from the past into the future. Yeah, how many laws did he break there, and how fucked up is the future going to be at that point?
Yep.
Like, I didn't like that. I'm like, Kirk, of all people, should know better.
Which is fair enough, but in all fairness, Kirk is the king of knowing better and then blatantly doing shit anyway.
Yeah, usually you can use that, but as I pointed out, in this case, he wouldn't do it because he's already had to go and fucking clean up after his officers' messes. He should know better than to actually do it anyway at that point. Yeah, because it's already come back to bite him in the ass.
He knows better in like a really important way. It's like, yeah, he may break some rules, but he's not a complete moron. And like taking the girl from the past who he doesn't know and doesn't have any records of or anything like that much, for all he knows, she could have been the person who gave birth to someone else that eventually gave birth to someone else and so forth, all the way up to them being like some important figure in Starfleet. You don't know.
Yeah.
Which means he's risking lives by doing that. Although, I would also make the case, technically, isn't the Federation doing that in the first place by wanting them to bring back a whale?
Yes and no. Well, two things. One, taking the girl, I could excuse more than all the rest of the stuff because she makes a valid point of, well, you're taking whales back. Tell me anybody in the 23rd century that knows anything about humpback whales. It's like, yeah, good point. If she doesn't come back, you're probably going to fucking kill them.
Yeah, but
however,
no, my point was, why would bringing back whales? I would make the case is equally bad.
Yes and no, because their logic for being able to do it, which makes half sense if you think about it, is they had to go back into the past in the first place because humanity drove the whales to extinction. So they're all going to die anyway. So if you take two whales, what's it matter if they're all going to die anyway? You're just repopulating the species at that point.
They're all going to die anyway, but I would make the case you don't know what the hell that whale could do in its lifetime. Like, it could, I don't know, it could bite the leg of, say, one of the feeders, injure him like fuck, and he could be really like a big motivational speaker that helps loads of people improve their lives, which would eventually lead to one of them going to Starfleet. Thank you. But yeah, it's a case of you don't know. It's like even Homer Simpson, when he went back in time, was told, don't touch anything. Even a small insect can make a big difference.
Mm. Which is true.
Which, if anything, what they should have done is took, since there's whales there, and they had the Genesis project and stuff, or at least some stuff to do that, couldn't they have just taken like a whale baby or a whale egg or something like that? Oh, well, technically not an egg because it's a mammal, but couldn't they have technically have taken something of the whale, like a kid or an offspring or something that wouldn't have affected as much, then taken that into the future and just aged it? Or taking a dead whale into the future, use Genesis to revive it like it did with Spock.
They could, except the only known Genesis device was kind of blown up when it was activated. That's number one.
Yeah, but
Number
they had the
two,
plans.
Spock wasn't instantly regenerated as Spock. Time had passed. It was like at least a month before they went back for him.
Yeah, it was at least a month. It was at
Yeah.
least a month, but I'd make the case. It's how. What, do you think the whales are going to go back there and instantly repopulate the whale population in a month?
No, but the whole point is they needed the whale there to have the whale song to tell the probe to go the fuck away, so it wouldn't destroy like Earth and the Federation and stuff. It wasn't to repopulate the whales.
Yeah.
They didn't even know about it until they realized, oh, we need whale song to talk to this probe. That's the whole reason they brought him back.
Yeah, which I'd make the case. A baby whale with 1 month, it could have easily have done it. They could have done it. A month or two.
But they didn't have a month. That was my point. Is they needed to do it.
Huh?
They needed to get the probe away at that time.
Yeah, and the other reason is, as was pointed out, you know how hard it is to find fucking whales? There happen to be 2 conveniently right near the ship in captivity. So that was way easier than spending God knows how long in the past scanning oceans trying to find a whale.
I was making the case they could just use a dead one and then use some sort of machine like Genesis to bring it back to life. That was my thing. Which, yeah, the time thing may be an issue, but they can find dead ones because hell, the skeletons of them all over the place. Hell,
Yeah,
the woman going through showed you videos of multiple people killing them and using their stuff for different stuff.
Yeah, if time wasn't a factor, that would have probably been the better way to do it. But because they needed a mature whale that could actually sing and communicate with this thing, like now, they kind of had no choice. I think, at least in terms of the whales, I think it came down to, okay, yeah, the whale could do something or affect something that could affect the Federation, but if we don't bring it back, there isn't going to be a Federation.
Yeah, there's also that, but I was just making the case there should have been better ways in affecting the past like that. I know that may be just a small thing, but, like, for example, if they needed the whale to just sing, couldn't they have just used a recorder?
Well, it's not just to sing, it's the whales. We need someone who's understanding what the probe is saying and then respond appropriately. And only a whale knows what the whale songs are saying. As humans, we can hear the song, but we don't know what the fuck it's saying. That's why they needed the actual whale to be able to interpret the message and then send a message back.
Yeah,
which kind of makes sense.
And
that makes a little sense, but that is really flimsy. The fact that's how the probe works.
And as was seen in the movie, it wasn't a matter of just sending a song back. They cut the whale and the ship exchanged songs back and forth several times over a period of 5, 6, 7 minutes. So it wasn't just one whale song and it was gone. They had to, the whale had to respond. They get a response. They had to have a conversation. It wasn't just here's a response. It's not like I'm replying to your email. It's like we're having an instant message conversation.
Yeah, Marcus said that. That's why I said. That's why I said to him. Yeah, that is true. I just think it was a little flimsy writing, like he'd mentioned at the beginning as well. Of that's how the probe worked. Like that, really? Who makes a probe and designs it to only communicate with whales?
Right, which they did explain in the movie, and it's an okay explanation, but yeah, they just did that so they could work in whales, and then they did it in the past so they could actually shoot on location, which, okay, fair enough, but it's like, really?
Yeah, it may have made a little bit of sense, but still, when you think about it logically, that is the dumbest thing to make a probe communicate with a whale.
Yeah.
It's like you could do bird ones better than that, just so people could actually do their bird calls with their hands over and over again if they could understand it. It's like that just seems stupid.
Yeah.
Or do it in Latin.
Yeah, it was kind of contrived. Like I said, it seemed like they built everything around whales. They built everything around this one concept they wanted to use, and it's like, wasn't even that good a concept. But having said that, I would say, for this one more than any other ones, say give this movie a watch and decide for yourself, because it is one of the more polarizing ones. Because like I said, there's a lot of people who hate this movie and a lot of people who actually like it. I would rate it. I'd probably go about a 7.5. It's okay. It's not too terrible as movies go. But it's a pretty bad Star Trek movie. No. It's not Star Trek to me. It really isn't. It's more like T.J. Hooker in space.
It's basically a Star Trek spin-off.
Kind of, yeah.
It's like Star Trek: The After Years, where they've had to settle down on Earth.
Yeah, or like Jim pointed out, when we were watching the movie, we were talking about this. It's more like an episode of Star Trek than it is a movie, because because you see some certain episodes of Star Trek, you don't get the ship, or you don't get this or that. It's not entirely Star Trek, but because it's an episode, it makes sense because it's focusing on an aspect of Star Trek, a character or a character's arc. You know what I mean?
I would make the case that would be the case with the bare bones idea of what the story was. But it's like, for example, let's say like Next Gen when they go into the past.
Mm-hmm.
In the episodes, does it still feel like the Next Gen characters? It does. It still feels like the characters, they're just in the past. This didn't really feel like the characters as much, even though it was meant to be character driven. Because of all the comedy, it felt like a different genre altogether. Whereas at least the other ones still feel like Star Trek, but in another setting. Sort of like, I don't know, like Spider-Man. If you see Spider-Man in now and again out of his environment, like in the woods or something like that, it still feels like Spider-Man. He's just out of his environment. It doesn't feel like Ultimate Spider-Man, where they're constantly breaking the fourth wall, making jokes every week.
Fair enough. And that is true. That is very true. Yeah, that's why I gave it like a 7.5, because it's got its moments. It's got its own tropes, and memes, nuclear vessels.
Yep.
And as Jim pointed out, which he kind of has a point, why the fuck would nuclear radiation stop a phaser from firing?
Because it's affecting the stuff inside it?
Wouldn't that be pretty shoddy technology if the shell of the phaser can't protect it from obsolete radiation?
I would make the case maybe radiation is radiation, due to the fact it didn't Spock die in the second one due to radiation. It may be from something else, but radiation as radiation could still affect them.
True. I just would think that by the 23rd century, if they no longer used nuclear stuff, if it's all obsolete technology, that by then the current technology, they would have found a way to shield stuff from that kind of stuff.
Well, I would make the case, if they no longer use it, why would they protect themselves against it?
I didn't say they made it explicitly to protect themselves against it. I was just saying that the technology at that time would have been so advanced, and the alloys that they're using, it would just naturally protect against that stuff, just because of what it is.
Yeah, but I was making the case, if we've seen radiation in Star Trek affect various stuff, because they no longer use the radiation of the past and stuff, chances are they're probably going to be using metals that react better for stuff in their time. Like, they may have metals that could stop radiation, but maybe they're not as, like maybe they're not as good for stuff in their time, like the climates and environments and stuff that they would be dealing with.
Mm-hmm.
So like how, and I know this is kind of a weird comparison, but it's sort of like how, do you remember when smallpox or Ebola hit America?
Mm-hmm.
Do you remember how huge everyone blew that up and how the doctors couldn't protect it? That was meant to be an obsolete disease that was meant to have been eliminated a while back, and as a result, no one was prepared for it.
True. I would also say, if nuclear fall-off, nuclear radiation, was affecting a phaser that much and affecting a transport beam, how the fuck was Chekhov still alive and functioning perfectly fine?
He just was.
I mean, think about it. If it's affecting futuristic technology like that, and Chekhov is in there without any kind of protection for himself, he should be fucking fried on the ground due to nuclear radiation. I'm sorry.
Possibly, but I would also, but some stuff gets, like, devices can get affected by radiation before the human body.
Mm.
But I would also say the teleportation stuff, not a factor. The phaser could be an issue. It depends on which way you want to go with that, but not the teleportation thing, because I'm going to turn a question over to Jim and see what he says. Jim, you've seen God knows how many Star Trek episodes.
I have.
How many times does shit affect their ability to teleport? It's like nothing. It's like it's not immune to anything. It's
True.
basically the opposite of Superman.
That was the point I made to Marcus during the movie. Is okay. So when here the phaser doesn't work and the communicators don't work, but he can beam her out just fucking fine. Is this bizarre Star Trek? What happened here?
Yeah.
I would also say, now that I think about it, if you think about it, the engine room in a nuclear ship, when you're down at the nuclear core or whatever, it's designed to protect humans from that stuff. So it's all like shielded up the ass, which would be why Chekhov and Uhura could walk in and not instantly fucking die, which makes sense. But now that I think about it, if that's the case, how the fuck is the radiation affecting the phaser? It's got fucking shielding around the core!
Because if you've seen the inside of a nuclear plant and stuff, for example, the Mythbusters episode that they went into a nuclear place, all around it warns them to keep away electronic devices, because even though it may give off like a small amount of radiation, they can check to see if it's safe for humans. That small amount of radiation might be safe for a human, so it might get, I don't know, a tiny bit ill, or might be affected just a tiny bit if it's unnoticeable. However, like an electronic device like a phone or a phase or anything, those small little computer cells and chips and stuff inside there, they could get fried.
Fair enough. I don't know. I just think it's a little convenient that they wrote it that way. I'm like,
it's convenient. It's very convenient, but so is most stuff in Star Trek.
True. It just doesn't make sense that the radiation would affect the phaser like that. Especially shielded radiation.
It doesn't make sense that they had a different fucking cockpit.
This is true.
That's the part that annoyed me the most. It was a glaringly different cockpit, and I'll admit it disappoints me and annoys me a little bit that I was the one that noticed that. Because no, I'm not as nitpicky about that much stuff. It's like
also.
No. For that matter, it doesn't make sense why you would build a probe that talks to fucking whales.
Yeah, I'm from England and I don't want to talk to whales.
Exactly.
I have to use this. I have to.
I meant the fish.
Well, the other thing, too, that...
They're not fish, they're mammals.
This is true. The other thing that made me go, is the fact that they were inconsistent with the cloaked Klingon bird of prey in the middle of Golden Gate Park. Because you notice when they land the ship, and like whenever, like say the Doctor comes up there, when they like go up to the ship, you'll see the indentation of where the ship landed in the park. But whenever you see the park any other time aside from those specific shots, there is no indentation in the park. I'm like, wait, did the ship all of a sudden like start to hover? What the fuck? It's like, no, park should be indented. And if that's the case, and you can see the indentation in the park. What's that?
Holographic grass.
But it shows the indented grass with the cloaked ship. It's like, and that brings me to the other thing of, how do people not know there's something there? A, they should see the indentation in the grass. B, as the Doctor herself pointed out, they should be stupid enough to walk straight fucking into the ship.
That is also true.
Like, that doesn't make sense. It's not like you're trying to park like a bike or a car in the middle of the thing. You're parking a fucking starship in the middle of Golden Gate Park. Someone's going to walk into it. It's like,
I would make the case as it's still considered a starship if it's not from the Federation.
Yeah, it's still a Klingon starship.
Fair enough.
It is literally a ship that flies among the stars, hence starship.
Yeah, I know why they call it starship, but a lot of times whenever I've seen Star Trek, like Klingons always refer to it as the Klingon vessel or the Klingon warship or something like that. And then when the good guys always refer to theirs as starship. So it's like maybe they added that like an official brand or thing, if that makes sense. Like sort of like how various people may say, oh yeah, I'm going to go and put this in the back of the Ford, but their car may not actually be a Ford, if that makes sense. So it's like,
Right.
I wasn't sure how it counted.
I don't know. I think I think that depends on who you ask. It's effectively the same thing, but yeah.
Ah, fair enough.
Yeah, I mean, maybe those like really uber hardcore fans that get nitpicky about everything would be like, well, technically, the Klingon ships are warships or birds of prey or whatever. But at the end of the day, it's the same fucking thing. They're all starships.
Fair enough. I was just making that question because, like I said, I feel a lot of times whenever I've seen it, rarely do the enemies actually refer to their thing as a starship. So I wasn't sure if it actually counts. It might actually count. I'm not entirely sure.
Yeah, the Klingons themselves probably don't refer to it as a starship, but that is what it is. Yeah, and in character and continuity, it makes sense not to do that because they wouldn't want to equate themselves, like with the Federation or whatever, so they would obviously name it something different. Like the Romulans, they call all their ships warbirds, which they kind of technically are, but that's in my mind, that's just a type of starship. Everything to me is a starship, as Jim pointed out, a ship that flies among the stars or sails among the stars.
I would make the case that's a spaceship.
True.
I would make the case that's a spaceship, as people normally use for the vague term of all of it. But starship might be the heroic branding for it because it sounds more yay. Because it's always like, yeah, these are the voyages of the Starship Enterprise. Why would you add Starship if it wasn't enough? If it wasn't like, you know what I mean? If it was a thing everyone had.
True. Fair enough. But yeah, my point still stands. You're parking a bird of prey, which is basically the size of Golden Gate Park, in the middle of Golden Gate Park. How does nobody walk into it? It's like, and they show in the movie people walking their dogs and stuff. It's like, really? So, you're not going to... And how do dogs not pick it up? Because dogs could probably, smell the ship. Because I'm pretty sure they didn't, fucking hose the ship off before they flew to Earth.
It was the 80s. People were less observant in the 80s and 90s. Hence why shitloads of people were all outside and no one saw Tupac get shot.
Yes, but the dogs, man. The dogs. I mean, seriously. If this was realistic, a dog should have smelled the HMS Bounty, walked over to it, and pissed on the strut.
To be fair, dogs don't piss on everything. If the dogs could have noticed, they just might not bark, because it might not be something they would see as an enemy or something. They might just say, oh, it's like a car.
Yeah, plus, the dog's probably not going to notice it, because the thing is, you can't see it. So the dog's probably just going to be confused as fuck and just stay away, because it's not going to know what the fuck to make of this.
Maybe. I don't know. It just seemed kind of convenient that nobody noticed, something impacting the ground in the middle of the park.
And here's an interesting question.
Mm-hmm.
Would the cloaking device actually work on a dog? Not to make a dog invisible, but cloaking devices normally manipulate the light around them to hide colours and all that stuff so it looks like it's invisible.
Right.
Dogs see in a completely different spectrum of colours.
This is true.
Good point. Well, I would imagine that since in the future dogs, cats, animals still exist, and given the fact that the Klingons who developed the Klingon technology, Romulans too, but Klingons specifically we're talking here, would develop it not only for use against enemies but against each other, because let's face it, they fight each other too. They would want to make sure that their pets and stuff, like the Targs and whatever, wouldn't be able to see the ships at all as well. So I would imagine they would have developed the cloaking technology to work with animals as well as humanoids.
Can I just say, if you're listening to us, Paramount, because of the idea Marcus just put forth of Klingons wanting to look after their little pets, can we please make a spin-off of Klingon Crufts? Thank you. I would watch that. I would watch Klingon Crufts.
Yeah. I don't know. That's just the way I look at it, though. If they're designing a ship that can land on a planet and they want it to cloak, they would want it to cloak against their versions of dogs. So, yeah. So they would have taken that into consideration.
Which would also mean maybe they did that so the dog wouldn't sense it.
That's a possibility, but they should still run straight fucking into it. It's in the middle of a goddamn park.
That is
What, are you telling me nobody just walks across the park? Seriously? Especially if you're walking a dog. I mean, I don't have a dog, but I've been around dogs and stuff like that. When you go to a park, what's the first fucking thing a dog does? It runs across the goddamn park.
No, not if they've got one of those little plaques up that says "Keep off the grass." Everyone respects those.
Yes, but this is Golden Gate Park. They don't have that plaque.
I'm also kidding if no one respects "Keep off the grass." If anyone sees "Keep off the grass," it's like challenge accepted.
Pretty much. I don't know, it just seems like they went out of their way to make this work instead of making this logical and common sense and realistic. It's like, oh, come on. If you're going to do this juxtaposition of, of the crew of the Enterprise and, our time period, make it realistic or it's not going to feel right.
Yeah, I would make the case, if you've seen Transformers animated, they did a better job.
Oh?
They hid their ship underwater at the bottom of the river, and they just came up from the water.
True.
So that makes a lot more sense. They should have done something like that.
Yeah. Yeah, that's the same thing they did with Abrams' Trek. They hid the Enterprise under the water.
Yeah, that makes sense.
They still fucked it up, but yeah.
It makes more sense than the park.
It does.
On a different bird of prey. That still bothers me, damn it. The cockpit, it bothers me.
Yeah. Did they change the exterior, or did they keep the same model for the exterior?
I think the outside still looked exactly the same. I didn't see any difference with the outside. The inside looked completely different. It even looked bigger on the inside. How is that possible if it's the same shell?
Yeah. What, you redesign... What, did Scotty redesign the Bridge of the Bounty to make it look and feel like the Bridge of the Enterprise?
Yeah. Which, if that was the case, if you're going to go to that much trouble of you're able to convert all of that into basically an Enterprise, just build an Enterprise.
Yeah, really. Especially if you're on Vulcan, you'd have the technology to build another ship.
Yeah.
Not to mention you'd have Vulcan scientists who would help you build said ship.
Yep. But did you want to take it out?
I shall. Yes, but yeah, 7 to 7.5. No, take a watch with it. It's a fun movie. It's obviously not meant to be taken seriously, so and that's saying a lot considering it's Star Trek, which in and of itself isn't supposed to be taken seriously, but this is really not supposed to be taken seriously.
Mm-hmm.
I guess the message it's supposed to be taken seriously, but you can't take it seriously when they screw up this much.
The message of the movie is: don't kill the whales. We'll need them in the future to communicate with a satellite probe thing.
Pretty much.
Which means, I would say, well, why can't we just kill the whales and design a better fucking mutant probe? That might just be me.
Well, it's not like we designed the probe, but yes. What?
I was going to say, which in itself is an issue of, why? Why would an alien communicate in whale talk?
Exactly.
Although I would make the case of, why does every alien on Star Trek speak English mostly? I mean, you do have different languages, but a lot of fucking aliens speak English.
Yeah. And,
actually,
they did it.
Actually, Mole, that's been addressed. Basically, it's basically outright shown, particularly in Deep Space Nine. This is highlighted where you have all kinds of species coming through. Most people in the Federation that work out in space with a lot of different races, they have a small implant under their left ear that serves as a universal translator that automatically translates whatever they're hearing into their native language, which allows everybody to talk to each other. And it sounds like English to us because that's what we listen to. But for the benefit, most of them are actually, the humans are speaking English, but a lot of the other races, like if you see a Ferengi or a Romulan or some shit, they might not be speaking English. It just sounds like they're speaking English because that's how the humans are hearing it.
But I would make the case, if that's the case, then, which in itself is really convenient and contrived because it was never brought up until then. And yay, they ripped off Hitchhiker's Guide with a little fish that goes in your ear. But if that's really yeah, there's a fish in Hitchhiker's Guide to the Galaxy where you put in your ear and it translates to your language.
Okay then.
Pretty awesome. But yeah, basically, I don't know how it works, but go with it. But yeah, that's definitely not meant to be taken seriously. But yes,
It's got to be a genetically engineered fish.
Yeah, it does. But yeah, I was going to say, basically, when it comes to this, if that's really the case later on in Star Trek of, okay, they got this so they don't speak English, then why? Why, sometimes when Klingons are giving, like, speeches to the humans, do they then suddenly go off in their own language and the humans can't understand them? What the fuck? Because that happened before now where they have to put subtitles underneath them. It's like, and it's like, and they have to translate it. And it's like, why if you've got this technology? It makes no sense. It's like they tried to explain it, and in doing so, didn't explain it, and made more problems.
I don't know. I just know there's that one, and it particularly comes up in that one episode of Deep Space Nine, where Quark, Rom, and Nog end up inadvertently going back in time, conveniently enough.
Yeah.
And they end up being the aliens that crashed at Roswell in the 60s. And basically they crash land and their universal translators break, which is why they can't communicate with the humans at first. And there's this weird thing where they're trying to figure out who these aliens are and what they're doing, until eventually Nog manages to get a hold of a lady's hairpin, and he's able to use it to, because Nog is really good at engineering, and he's able to repair Quark's universal translator so they can actually talk to the humans. At which point, of course, Quark starts trying to, rip them all for money. But that's not the point. The point is establish universal translators.
Yeah, which I was saying, which makes sense. And then it's like later on, loads of stuff. I mean, it raises the question of why? If this exists, why does this happen? Which, to be fair, it's not just Star Trek. I've made the case before now. It always amuses me on anything. I don't know, Doctor Who, Star Wars, anything with aliens, besides, ironically, the movie Aliens. Most of the time, you will stumble across aliens that speak perfect fucking English.
Mm-hmm.
It always amuses me, that. It's like, really? They speak English? What a coincidence. Oh, I do love The Simpsons explaining that.
Mm-hmm.
With their aliens, have been like, no, it's the language from our planet, which, in an astounding coincidence, just happens to be the same as English.
Mm-hmm.
I'm like, okay. I'll go with that.
I have to say, for Star Trek, at least compared to the other franchises and things that have had these aliens, aside from Simpsons, because they did explain it, I have to give them credit for at least trying to come up with a reason why we hear everything in English.
To be fair, Star Wars does too. Or it did before Disney probably erased it. Although the stuff with Star Wars always explained that English was basic. Which makes sense considering you had an empires and stuff like that taking over. It stands to reason, which is why loads of people speak English. Yet there's also people like Huts who just speak Huttese.
True.
But yeah, at least they tried to explain it, but didn't do a good job because they then made me raise more questions. That just also reminds me, which I'm assuming it reminds Jim of Futurama. How did it burn down? Oh, that's where I left my cigar. That just raises further questions.
That's where I left my cigar. Wow.
I like that scene. But yeah, so I believe you're taking us out.
Yes, so that's Star Trek IV: The Voyage Home.
Marcus.
Yeah, not the best in the series, not the worst, kind of middle of the road. It is in the middle of the franchise because it's number 4 out of 6.
No, it's number 4 of 12.
Well, 4 of 6 of the original movies.
There's 8.
No, there's not.
Abrams.
Oh. That's not the original
And Generations.
Generations is debatable. It's more like Kirk and company were cameos because they didn't have much in the movie. They showed up for the first 10 minutes. Kirk fucking died. The others went off to go do their shit, and then Kirk shows up for the last 5 minutes of the movie.
and I'm going to be a complete dick and say, how dare you say Abrams had none of the original cast back? How dare you discredit the late Leonard Nimoy?
Again, cameo.
He wasn't a cameo. He was literally one of the most important parts of the first film. He drove the whole film. If he never came back, none of it would happen.
It's true.
Yeah, in terms of story, that doesn't make him any less a cameo in the film.
He was the main character because they kept going for him to advice and he kept helping them and stuff. He was more like the old Obi-Wan.
Kind of, but he was only in like 2 scenes.
He
Two
was in one or
scenes.
two.
No, he was on the planet, and he got Kirk and Scotty back to the Enterprise, and he was there at the end. That's it. Those were the only 2 scenes he was in, and maybe in a couple of flashbacks.
He was in
of him coming into the.
He was on the scene where he was on the island stuff, but they kept breaking that up with other stuff, thus making them different scenes, and the end stuff like you mentioned, and some stuff in between.
Yeah.
But yes, halfway through the first 8.
6.
Oh, so when he said halfway, I was like, okay, so it must be 8 because it was the 4th.
Yeah, I think we're on the 4th, so we're more than halfway, actually.
I said in the middle of. I didn't say halfway. I said in the middle.
All right, fair enough.
Yeah, halfway would have been her last movie, but yeah.
Yeah, because it works out that that happens to be exactly the right number of films to us to review, Mole, because there's 6 original movies, and 4 next-gen movies is 10, and 2 Abrams movies, so it's 12 exactly.
Again, I was aware. I was the one that raised the point of 12. I was just saying if it was meant to be we're halfway, I was making the quick case of, but we must be 8 then if we're in the middle or halfway, because middle.
Fair enough. But yes, join us next month when we take a look at Star Trek V. Why does God need a starship?
It's Star Trek V. Looking at the cover, it said Star Trek V. I thought it was a crossover.
Ha! Yes, Star Trek V: The Final Frontier, where we do in fact find out what does God need with a starship.
He needs to get back in time for his tag team match with HBK.
Apparently. And then we get to see Plot Convenience half-brother. Complete horseshit. Oh my, that worst character ever. Oh my god, that character was terrible. We'll get to that next month.
He's not as worse as Klingon in 3rd film or Bald Guy in Nemesis.
No, he was worse than Shinzon. Shinzon was actually kind of cool.
I didn't like him.
He was better than Cybok.
Debatable. Really debatable.
Oh, I fucking hated Cybok. But anyway.
Fair enough.
That'll come next month. So thank you two for joining me once again.
Pleasure.
You're welcome.
And thanks everybody for listening. For those who listened in and who will listen in on the future. And we'll see you next month.
In the future.
To the future. To infinity and beyond.
That was not the reference at all. You killed the reference.
Well, according to some people, the next film killed the franchise.
Is this true too?
Still hasn't hung up.
I know because we haven't stopped talking, but we will now. Good night, everybody.